Welcome to Love and Speak the Truth with me, Sister Brenda, the podcast where all voices are heard with diverse guests from all over the globe. We make space for stories of integrity, justice, freedom, and joy. So come along. We're not afraid to get into the tough stuff, and we're actually not afraid to laugh along the way. So buckle up, open your heart, open your mind, and let's get this party started. It is a profound honor to welcome Sister Orla Treacy, CJ, joining us from South Sudan, Rumbek. For more than 20 years, Orla has lived and served in mission there, offering visionary leadership rooted in collaboration, advocacy, and deep love for her students. She sees and calls forth the beauty and potential in each young person, holding a strong belief in the gifts they bring to the world. Though recognized with some of the highest honors in Ireland and beyond, Orla leads with humility, grace, and authenticity. Through stories filled with humor and heart, she brings to life the power of teamwork, education, and community. She's a missionary at heart. It is truly my privilege to welcome Orla to our conversation today. So, welcome today to the program, Sister Orla Treacy. It's so good to see you all the way from South Sudan, Rumbek or Awil. We'll find out. I'm so really happy to see you today.
Thanks, Brenda, and great to be with you. Today, I can tell you that I'm in Rumbek in South Sudan. I was in Awil last week, but I'm in Rumbek this week. So great to connect with you. No matter where you are in South Sudan at the moment, it's hot. So all I can tell you is sending you many warm, sunny greetings from South Sudan.
Here we go. So just tell me about what's life like for you in South Sudan there. Tell us a little bit about your situation, and we'll get into some of the ministry that you're involved in.
Honestly, it's day by day. Every day is different. Every day is exciting. This time of the year, we are looking at taking in new students. So we have a queue of parents around the compound begging and pleading for their daughters to get accepted to Loreto. Hard reality for us. We had 534 girls looking for 140 places. So obviously for every one girl you're saying welcome to Loreto, there are two girls not getting a place. And they all have sad stories. You know, they come, the girls are crying. They're telling us that if they don't get into Loreto, they're going to be forced to marry. If they don't get into Loreto, they're not going to be allowed to go to school. So it's a hard season. With that is it's also hot. This is heat. I always associate Easter with dripping, heat, sweating. I know it's not polite to say, but that's the only thing I can tell you. It's hot and it's humid, and it's that's the kind of time. And you know, when we're hot and humid, we're not sleeping well. People are more on edge at this time of year, and our young men often fight as well in the cattle camps. So there's a bit of fighting going on here at the moment too. Otherwise, it's just an ordinary day here in South Sudan.
Yeah, we're going to put a place and a face on this. I want you to tell the listeners about you. Tell us about you and what you're doing there.
That's a very good question. I am part of the Irish province, Loreto sister, CJ sister now, happy to say. And as some people may know, the Loreto branch, we had a movement over 20 years ago where each of our provinces or gatherings of sisters was invited to start a new mission in a new country. And the Irish sisters discerned and prayed for over 2 years and eventually accepted the invitation to start a new mission in what was then known as Southern Sudan. It was still part of Sudan. So I volunteered very enthusiastically. I should say that before I volunteered, I never ever wanted to be a missionary. But by God's grace, at the time they were looking for sisters, I had already come to the point that actually I could be a missionary. And I volunteered, and that was in 2005. I came in 2006, and I am here celebrating 20 years in South Sudan. Obviously, Brenda, I was a child when I went out there because I'm still very, very, very young, isn't it? But my work changes all the time. Now I have the official title of being director of the missions in South Sudan, and we now have just started a second mission. That's a project which is 10 hours by road from here in the town of Awil. So it's an exciting,
Yes.
changing environment. And obviously, I lived to see the birth of a brand new country. We became a new independent
Yeah.
country in 2011. Not everybody can say they lived through the birth of a new country, but I can. So
Mhm.
it's a changing place. It's a challenging place, but it's a beautiful place to be.
Why would the listeners, why would the world, the average person, care about the missionary work that you're doing? How does that connect to the broader understanding of bringing mission-centered work to a place like South Sudan? Why would this matter to the world?
Yeah, probably it doesn't in many ways. It matters to me. I always viewed myself as a missionary within my own country. I never felt that I needed, as a younger sister, I never felt I needed to go cross culture, cross country. But when the invitation from our sisters came to start in a new developing country, in a nation that was just recovering from civil war, and to begin a girls' boarding secondary school, it was really, for me, it was just a fantastic opportunity. It was a moment to try and help start something different. I don't know if people are even aware of the challenges that are in South Sudan today, but if you Google us, you'll get all the worst information about South Sudan. We are one of the most violent, one of
Mm.
the most corrupt, one of the most uneducated. We have high infant mortality, we have high maternal death, we have terrible statistics around life and the loss of life and the challenges of life. But amidst the people that we're in, there's an incredible sense of pride, of hospitality, of friendship, of care, of love, and of desire for change. So I think we don't really think about the global community in what we do, but yet we're so connected because we have so many partners helping us. I know that the CJ worldwide community is supporting us and people have a genuine interest, but we do it because we love what we do and because of the community that we are serving here.
You are one of the youngest in the Irish province, but the significance of your being a missionary so far away from Ireland, doing missions that not many people would be able to function in such dire situations. You know, you talk about the heat, but having visited there, I know there's a great sense of isolation, and there are not many people that look like you there. Even though you compete very well on the height situation. When I was there, I was like a little bit of a pygmy, and you were right there with the giants. But give us a little situation of what's the significant as a young Irish white, very much educated and able to somehow move from country like Ireland, little island, many missionaries coming out of there to go to this remote place with all these issues. What inspires you to do that?
I want to just share a little story on this. I am the youngest Irish Loretto sister in the Irish province, and I'm in Ireland, I'm conscious that I'm the youngest sister. And then you come back here to a compound full of young people. We would have about 2,000 young people in our compound every day. And I remember
Yeah.
when COVID arrived, I was actually in Europe when COVID started, and thankfully I got back here very quickly. And we had an assembly, and I was saying to the students, I said, I said, this is something that is going to affect, don't fear it too much. I said, we're used to malaria. Obviously, it is something that we're concerned about. And in particular, we're concerned that the older members of our community who are more vulnerable, that they may be more fragile in the face of getting COVID. So we have to take precautions, we have to go home and whatever. So as the students were going out the gate, a few of the senior students came to me and they had a very sad face on them. And I said to them, are you okay? And they said, no, sister, we are really, really worried. And I said, what are you worried about? And they said, we're worried about you. And I said, why are you worried about me? And they said, well, because you said it was the old and vulnerable that were going to be most affected by COVID. And so we're worried about you. I thought, So that's my reality. I go to Ireland and I may be the youngest, and I go back to South Sudan and I'm the oldest in the compound. So there's that constant kind of
Uh-huh.
contradiction going on in my life all of the time. But it's a beautiful reality to
Yeah.
be in. I never wanted to be a missionary. I have to say that when I came to Loreto, I never ever expected to be going abroad. I had been in India. When I finished college, I volunteered to work in Calcutta, and many would have known the famous Sister Cyril. I worked with a few of my college friends. We worked with her for 2 months. And when I came home, I definitely didn't want to be a missionary, but I was ready to become a Loreto sister, and I became a Loreto sister. And as a temporary professed sister, I had another opportunity to go back to India with a group of teachers. And ironically, Sister Noel and Kathleen McLennan were also part of this program. We were bringing teachers. They were going to Kenya, and I was going to India. And when I went back to India the
Mhm.
second time, I really was challenged by our older Irish missionary sisters. And I thought, I could actually be a
Mhm.
missionary. And at the same time, Kathleen and Noel were in Kenya, and they met the bishop for the Diocese of Rumbek, and he came with the invitation for the
Mhm.
new school. And they came back to Ireland, and we had a night out exchanging stories, and they spent the night talking about Rumbek. And I thought, wow, this is it. God is really pushing me to an edge, and I am ready. I was ready. My bags were packed. I was ready to go. And I was so excited. But
Mhm.
I never expected to stay. As the Irish province was discerning, I took out the atlas and I looked at southern Sudan and I saw it was bordering so many African countries. I thought I was going on an adventure. And I thought, this is fantastic. And the provincial at the time, Sister Teresa McPaul, she said to me, she said, I'd like you to go for 5 years. And I said, great, no problem. I'm going to travel all around Africa while I'm there. But I never expected to
Mhm.
still be here 20 years, that we are here now 20 years. I never expected it. But the Irish province, I mean, it's very much part of the Irish province, and the support we get from the sisters in Ireland is really extraordinary. Their prayer, their fundraising, their advocacy, their interest is just really, really beautiful. And the contact that we have, they'd regularly write, they'd regularly ask how we're doing. And when I go back to Ireland, there's always a great welcome and great support. They do have a great sense of the missionary story, and it has been really wonderful for me to feel part of that and connected to them as well in that.
I know the students and the whole community, they're very connected. What would they say about you? If they could say one thing about what you've brought to their community as a missionary.
Oh, I don't possess many of the Mary Ward qualities, but Galloping Girl is probably definitely because she's in and out of the house every day. I have a lovely community. I stay in the community in Dalkey, and there are only 8 of us in the community when I'm in Ireland, and half of them are missionaries. And some of them have lived in
Mhm.
South Sudan. So they have a great capacity to engage, to know, to want to know. And I love storytelling. So, I mean, they're a perfect audience that I can just sit and talk and we just share. But probably, yeah, they'd probably say she's a real galloping girl. They don't know where she is from day to day. She's out here, she's out there, and she's gone somewhere else.
And you're a storyteller
I
too.
try to be.
I think there's something about our story that connects us, right? I mean, when you look at the young women that you serve, are there any boys in the camp? Or
Yes.
it's just mostly
No, the
girls
second primary school
in the
is
camp?
mixed boys and girls. Secondary school, boarding only girls, and internship and education center, boys and girls again. So we've a good mixture. Went for a girls' boarding
Mhm.
secondary school. That was what we were invited for. The late Bishop Caesar Mazzolari had invited us to do that. And when we got settled in the boarding school, we realized that many of the boys and girls in the local community were not going to primary school. So we realized after a time that in order to have an effective boarding school, secondary school in the community, we also needed to address the needs within the local community. So we started a primary school for boys and girls. The primary school today has just over 1,000 boys and girls. The secondary school,
Mm.
next week when we take in the new students, we'll have over 400 girls boarding. Then we have internships.
Mhm.
So these are some of our graduates that come back every year. We have 15 of our graduates and 5 young men. They come back and work with us for up to 2 years, and they work with us in different departments: trainee teachers, trainee nurses, administration, all the different areas of the compound. And then they go on to university. And then we have an education center, and that's a program of English and computers and teacher training for young men and women from the community. They come in the morning and then they go home in the evening as well. So it's a very vibrant community. We could have up to 2,000 students in the compound in any one day, and we have a staff of over 100 as well.
So, what sustains you in all of this? How do you make sense of the work and the life that you're living right now?
I think one of the gifts that I had when I came here in the beginning is I didn't know anything, meaning I had never been in a boarding school in my life. And that
Mhm,
enabled me to ask others to help. And it enabled me to
mhm,
work with others from the very beginning. So, a huge part of my day is the team that I work with. We are 10 in the management group, and they're all the different heads of departments. They're Kenyan, Ugandan, South Sudanese, male, female, sisters as well. And it's just an incredible team that we work together. We have had a number of challenging crises, particularly in the last 12 months. And it's just been incredible to see how the team comes together and supports one another. Prayer has been a huge part of this journey for me. I think back in the early years, I hadn't a clue what I was doing. And I remember one vivid encounter that I had with one of the Jesuits the first year we were here. I was left in charge and I was alone some of the time with different sisters coming in and out to support the project. This was the first year of the school. So it was actually our third year in South Sudan.
mhm,
And I remember in the evening times, I hadn't a clue what was happening. And I used to go into the chapel and just weep at night because I had no words
mhm.
and I was just exhausted. And I had nothing to say except just to look at the cross and just weep and say, this is beyond me. The stories the girls were sharing, the reality of the community we were living in, the hunger that was around, the violence that was present. There were gunshots. And I remember one evening a Jesuit priest came to visit. And he wasn't a man I was particularly close to, but I remember him bringing me for a walk around and he said to me, remember, where there is the cross, there is Jesus. Where there is suffering, there is the cross. And where there is the cross, there is Jesus. And that has really held me over the years because,
Mhm.
I love a kind of a nice, happy, jolly, easy life. But the reality is, life is not like that for us. And life is not like that for many of the women of this community and for many of the young people in this community. But there's a sense of if I can unite that and understand that in the shadow of the cross, it makes all the sense to me. It makes all the sense that that is
Yeah,
what we're about and that that's what we're invited to engage in. And it's the story of love, really. It doesn't stop. Sometimes I feel it's Good Friday every day here, but then I keep remembering, well, Easter Sunday does come. And we do get glimpses of Easter Sunday as well.
living in the shadow of the cross, and that's where you find love because Jesus is there. How would you describe the life of many of the people there, inside or outside the compound, and what you bring to it in order to bring some sort of hope to people?
I often visit schools in Europe and the students would try and they'd ask what's life like in school, in boarding school. And I would often like to
Mhm,
say to our students in Europe, a teenager in our compound getting a place in our school would be like you getting free tickets to go to Disneyland.
mm,
In Europe and in Western cultures, education is part of a must. We have to do it. But here it's an absolute luxury. And to get into a
mhm,
school like Loreto where they know there's quality education, they come in the gate and they often, I love watching the new students. They're beginning to come at the moment and the new students come and you see that tension in their face, that aggression in their face because they have to fight for everything outside. And they walk in the gates of Loreto and they slowly, it takes them a few weeks, but slowly you see the body soften, the face becoming more relaxed, and they become happier when they're in school. Because in school, they have water, we have power, they have access to quality education, they have school mothers. So what we do is the first years have a mother who's in second year, who has a grandmother in third year. They're supported, they're cared for. There's a clinic, there's counseling facilities, and they know that while they're with us, they're safe. Outside, life is
mhm.
tough, life is hard. I think the statistics in our community at the moment is that 10% of girls are forced to marry by the age of 15. 52% of girls
Mm,
are forced to marry by the age of 18. So imagine coming in and
mm,
getting a place in secondary school at 14, 15 years of age and realizing you're okay. You're going to be protected. Because the other thing in Loreto for us over the years, we now have got the government on board and the local community and the chiefs on board. When a girl comes to Loreto, the family have to sign an agreement. She will not be forced to marry. And this has been a hugely successful campaign where girls know that if they're in Loreto and the families are organizing their weddings outside, so long as they stay with us, they will be supported. But obviously, if they go out, that is where the family will get them and they will be forced to marry. But it's a very hard life. Out of that, you get to see incredible young women who want to change their
Mhm.
community, who want to change their country. Very ambitious, very focused, wonderful young women who want to take on leadership and who want to make change. I mean, it's a real beautiful story of Mary Ward's vision for today. 400 years ago, hearing that women in time to come would do great things. They love that. In our school, they love that in South
Mhm.
Sudan. They know that they're being educated for change and they want to be the change makers in their community.
Yeah, well, the whole idea of changing a girl's life generally changes the whole community, doesn't it? Once you get that sense of empowerment that they have as much potential as they bring to it, that they have that desire to make a change for future generations. I think that's what women do. That's kind of co-creating life, isn't it, in the
Yeah, there are
community?
those great expressions that they say that if you educate a woman, you'll educate a village. And that's very, very strong for us.
Yes.
Most of our graduates now, when they're working, they'll come back and tell us that they are now sponsoring 10 and 15 of the next generation to go to school. That they're making sure that their brothers and
Mhm.
sisters, their nieces, their nephews, their cousins are all getting a chance at education because they realize education is the game changer. It changes mindsets, it
Mhm.
changes opinions, it changes values. And I think our young people are realizing that in order to develop South Sudan, we have to focus on education.
Bring that out into the world. Bring that out into efforts to motivate people to live in a just world, to end poverty and disease, and create policies that somehow links us to one another. I think some of us here in this country anyway, feel that, what happens here stays here. But generally, what happens in one place in the world affects many other places in the world, if not the whole world. So try to pull that out for me to see how what you're doing there can impact somehow other places in the world, if not on the continent, but other
Yeah,
places.
I think that's something we're even trying to look at ourselves at the moment. How can our story be played out to inspire others? Last year, we brought two of our
Mm.
graduates to Ireland, and it was incredible the reception that they got. I think we often live, despite technology, despite multimedia access, all of that sort of thing, we're still quite limited in our vision. Many of us
Mhm.
live in monocultures. We feel threatened by other cultures. But it's only when we meet
Yeah.
and engage with others that the dialogue kind of flows. That would be my sense of it. People are hugely interested, and young people, honest to God, they're the same the world over. Fight for justice and full of
Mhm.
passion and idealism. They are just full of it. And I think maybe sometimes we lack the chance to invite them into that struggle and into that conversation. But I know that when we go around with our young people in Ireland, there's huge openness, there's huge welcome, and there's huge interest and desire to know more. But I think the challenge in today's world is how do we dialogue in a respectful way? How do I share the story
Mhm.
of my culture as a Dinka woman into an affluent culture in Europe? How do I do that in a way with equity, with justice, with equality? How do I do that? And I think that's sometimes where the challenge is. We have a lovely young Irish woman staying with us here at the moment. And it was beautiful. Last week, they had to teach her to hand wash clothes because she has never experienced
Mhm.
this. But they're teaching her and she's teaching them. And I think that that's the only way it's going to work in our world is if we open our doors to one another. I mean, one of the big challenges I've had with the donors over the years is why do you need to build such a beautiful school? Why can't you educate them under the tree? And you're thinking, guys, the international market expects us to be able to dialogue according to your rules. So at least allow our daughters learn your rules, play your games, and then we can talk about change. But don't keep us down just because our mothers are living like that. Don't keep us down. And I think that's always a challenge. People would say, you're bringing in Western education into South Sudan. You're saying, yes, we are, because we want the next generation to be able to fight the games, to be able to sit at the table with those that are making the decisions about South Sudan and to be equitable, full of justice, and equal to everybody at that table. And I think that's one of the challenges that we would often have.
Oh, I hear the passion in your voice there, Orla, and I completely agree with that desire to have an exchange, a human exchange that enables us to speak each other's language. We don't have to become the other, but we need to somehow find a way to enter into the experience of the other and the wisdom of the other, isn't it? You have a wonderful way to explain how the young people can come together and see, gosh, I might be here to teach you something, but you can also teach me something, how to be human in my setting and understanding your own setting. That's great. I love
And I
that.
don't think the challenges of the world are created by young people. I think they're created by us older people. I think if our young people can be allowed to explore more, to travel more, to engage more, I think we'll all be the better for it if we can engage with them in that too.
One of the priests said in a homily the other day, he said the reason why we have wars, it's because old men want to live on forever. And so they send their young people into war to die so that they could live forever. There is something about that older people, those of us in a generation where we find ourselves calling the shots, making the decisions, creating policies that do not engage with the needs and the future hopes for the world.
Yeah, I would add to it and say that our wars are also created by fear and power. That we fear the change. I mean, one of the big things I've seen in this country is the more we can invest in quality education, the more we commit ourselves to peace. Because it's our young men who are being misled by some of the elders who haven't had a chance to critically think, who haven't had a chance to be educated. They're being led by others who are trying to hold on to power in their communities. And I think that's been one of the challenges that we have here.
The influence of that search for power and finding power in the fear of others, and so you want to oppress, you want to keep people down because you will lose something in the process of empowering people to be who they're called to be. Yeah, yeah. What's it like for you, Orla, when you have to translate for the people you come in contact with, whether it be donors or young people, to have to make this translation? Is it something that is, constantly aching in you to try to help people to see this is one human being speaking about other human beings?
Yeah, one of the great gifts that my family gave me when I was younger is we moved. We moved a lot around Ireland. And I had to very quickly learn the cues, learn the language, and interpret the ways, and know that my accent, my behavior, my dress, it had to keep changing when I moved from place to place. And that has helped me very much to settle, and it has helped me in trying to talk about the situation here. We're a police controlled state. When I have the opportunity to talk about South Sudan, I'm always mindful that the people of the village are listening to what I have to say. And that's been a beautiful guiding light for me. That whenever I talk, I am talking about the community that I live in. And I talk about we. I talk about us. Because it's been my home for 20 years. And it's, yes, I'm Irish, and Ireland is my home too, but South Sudan is also my home. So I talk about us, and there's always that sense in the group that the government is also listening too. So I'm also a guest in the country, even though it's my home. I'm still a guest in the country. So I try to talk with fairness. Try to talk with justice, with respect.
Hmm.
But I also can complain. And
Hmm.
sometimes I like to bring our graduates with me, and I tell them, now, is what I'm saying appropriate or inappropriate? And they'll say, no, 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 it's perfectly appropriate. And then I ask them the same questions, and they tend to be much, much tougher than I am. So I say to them,
Hmm.
look, we can't complain about the older generation. They haven't had the same opportunities that you've had. Your parents have
Hmm.
been born in war, they've grown up in war, you've born in relative peace. So, we have to be careful not to judge too much either.
Hmm.
But it is a challenging country, and there are very difficult elements in it, and we're not free to expose it or to campaign against it. So we do what we can. And I keep saying to the girls, it is their job to rise up, and it is their job to challenge injustice as they see it in their own community. And it's very easy to write a text message complaining about the government on WhatsApp or on Facebook. But I kind of say to the
Hmm.
girls, look, you don't have to go to that level. Start with your own family. Start with yourself. Start with
Yeah.
your own class. Start with your own community, and challenge injustice in yourself before you're quick to point the finger out. Because I think it's at the grassroots we have to change. We have to bring
Yeah.
change at the grassroots.
I think we can all learn from that lesson. Start with ourselves, start with our own families, have the hard conversations with the people in our own lives who can learn how to dialogue with each other, learn how to disagree, right? Everywhere we go, we can learn from that.
Yeah, and I think it was your council that had that great phrase. I think it was your council, and when you guys were in Rome, honest conversations. Who
Yes,
wants who wants honest conversations? Honest to God, it's one of the most challenging things to do, is to have honest conversations. But we're
absolutely.
very quick to point out, but let's start with ourselves and try and have honest conversations with ourselves. Start with me,
Mhm,
and then we go to me and you, and then we see how we
mhm.
can do it and how good we are at it.
And that's why I think these kinds of platforms for us to be able to have honest conversations. Part of the honest conversation is learning how to listen to one another and learn from one another, because it's so easy, as you said, to point the finger and not spend time going a little bit deeper by asking you, how do you understand that? How did you come by that information, that knowledge? And maybe put myself in your shoes some of the time, right? Honest conversations, as you said, is a really hard thing to do,
Hmm.
especially when you care about the people you're talking to and listening to.
Absolutely. That and I think that's the goal for all of us in life, to have mature, honest conversations with one another. It's very
Yeah.
easy to point the finger. Yeah. I
Mhm.
listen, I'm saying it and I'm struggling with it, but I mean that's
Yes.
who we are, isn't it? That's
Mhm.
who we are.
Yeah. But it's a good thing too to have that struggle, because it's in that struggle that we learn how to change or how to understand from a different perspective. Well, it's hot, and we can talk on and on about this, but I think it would be good before the power goes out to hear a little bit about what do you think love's got to do with everything we've been talking about? Being in South Sudan, being here in the US and in Chicago area, for me, I can resonate with so many things that you talked about. But what's love got to do it from your perspective?
Brenda, your podcast is called Love and Speak the Truth.
Mm, yes,
When we have our final commitment, we all get rings. On my
yes.
ring, I chose the exact same motto: love and speak the truth.
How about that?
And yeah, I think it's going back to that thing of honest conversations with ourselves and with others. And then inside it, we were asked to pick two patrons. I picked
Mhm,
Oscar Romero and I picked Saint Therese. I picked Saint Therese because she's the patron of missionaries, but she's always that woman about the little ways to love, the little
mhm,
things. Now, physically, I'm a big person and I have a big job, so it's very hard for me to do the little things and to acknowledge. But when I think about love, in South Sudan, it is absolutely the little things. How you greet the people in the morning, how you're present to one another, how the workers are with us. It's just a beautiful encounter every single morning. And then Oscar Romero, quite the contrast. He's like, if I think of St. Therese as the internal operations of love, Oscar Romero to me is the externals operations of love and challenging unjust systems and that whole sense of love being the driving force for what he was about. But I always love this phrase, and I just want to end on this lovely, lovely phrase from him because it's something I feel very strongly about with us in South Sudan. We're missionaries, we're not development workers. And his quote, his reflection is, we are workers, not master builders, ministers, and not messiahs. We are prophets of a future not our own.
Mm,
And that is something that really has held and kept me and it keeps me in my lane. We are not
mhm.
development workers. We are for Christ. We are for love. We are for justice, and we are for one another.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to end. And I would just add to that we can be missionaries in our own land if we allow ourselves to listen deeply. Thank you so much, Orla. I am so
Brenda, thank
grateful
you.
for your time.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And now for the wrap up. You have just had a human experience from a spiritual being. We have so much to learn. So go forth to love and speak the truth. Ad majorem Dei gloriam. A couple of announcements. Don't forget to rate and follow us on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We are on Facebook at Love Speak Truth and visit our website at www.lovespeaktruth.org. For a few credits, when all is said and done, I give thanks and credit for sponsors, producers, and contributors who made this podcast possible. Mega shout out to IBVM Region Leadership, Megan Butel, Jennifer Schmitz, Laurenti Wright for the keyboard music, the late Sister Maria Beer IBVM for her composition of the music Women Bearing Witness. It takes a village, folks. Thanks for listening to Love Speak Truth.